This is Pippi Longstocking, Book 1, Chapter 6. It looks like Chapter 6 wasn't recorded earlier with the rest of Book 1. So this is out of order, Book 1, Chapter 6. Chapter 6 is called Pippi Arranges a Picnic. "We don't have any school today because we're having scrubbing vacation," said Tommy to Pippi. "Scrubbing vacation? Well, I like that," said Pippi. "Another injustice. Do I get any scrubbing vacation? Indeed, I don't, though goodness knows I need one. Just look at the kitchen floor. But for that matter," she added, "now I come to think of it, I can scrub without any vacation. And that's what I intend to do right now. Scrubbing vacation or no scrubbing vacation. Ha! I'd like to see anybody stop me. You two sit on the kitchen table, out of the way." Tommy and Annika obediently climbed up on the kitchen table, and Mr. Nilsson hopped up after them and went to sleep in Annika's lap. Pippi heated a big kettle of water and without more ado poured it out on the kitchen floor. She took off her big shoes and laid them neatly on the bread plate. She tied 2 scrubbing brushes on her bare feet and skated over the floor, plowing through the water so that it splashed all over her. "I certainly should have been a skating princess," she said, and kicked her left foot up so high that the scrubbing brush broke a piece out of the overhead light. Here is Pippi with her brushes strapped to her feet. That's quite a good jump. "Grace and charm I have at least," she continued, and skipped nimbly over a chair standing in her way. "Well, now I guess it's clean," she said at last, and took off the brushes. "Aren't you going to dry the floor?" said Annika. No, it can dry in the sun," answered Pippi. "I don't think it will catch cold so long as it keeps moving." Tommy and Annika climbed down from the table and stepped across the floor very carefully so they wouldn't get wet. Out of doors, the sun shone in a clear blue sky. It was one of those radiant September days that made you feel like walking in the woods. Pippi had an idea. "Let's take Mr. Nilsson and go on a little picnic." "Oh, yes, let's!" cried Tommy and Annika. "Run home and ask your mother then," said Pippi, "and I'll be getting the picnic basket ready." Tommy and Annika thought that was a good suggestion. They rushed home and were back again almost immediately, but Pippi was already waiting by the gate with Mr. Nilsson on her shoulder, a walking stick in one hand, and a big basket in the other. The children walked along the road a little way and then turned into a pasture where a pleasant path wound in and out among the thickets of birch and hazel. Presently they came to a gate on the other side of which was an even more beautiful pasture. But right in front of the gate stood a cow, who looked as if nothing could persuade her to move. Annika yelled at her, and Tommy bravely went up and tried to push her away, but she just stood there staring at the children with her big cow eyes. To put an end to the matter, Pippi set down her basket and just lifted the cow out of the way. The cow, looking very silly, lumbered off into the hazel bushes. "How can cows be so bull-headed?" said Pippi, and jumped over the gate. "What a lovely, lovely wood!" cried Annika in delight as she climbed up on all the stones she could see. Tommy had brought along a dagger Pippi had given him, and with it he cut walking sticks for Annika and for himself. He cut his thumb a little too, but that didn't matter. "Maybe we ought to pick some mushrooms," said Pippi, and she broke off a pretty rosy one. "I wonder if it's possible to eat it," she continued. "At any rate, it isn't possible to drink it, that much I know, so there is no choice except to eat it. Maybe it's possible." Don't eat a mushroom you find on the ground. No, no, no. She took a big bite and swallowed it. "It was possible," she announced, delighted. "Yes, sirree, we'll certainly stew the rest of this sometime," she said, and threw it brunk high over the treetops. "What have you got in your basket?" asked Annika. "Is it something good?" "I wouldn't tell you for $1,000, said Pippi. "First, we must find a good picnic spot." The children eagerly began to look for such a place. Annika found a large flat stone that she thought was satisfactory, but it was covered with red ants. "Well, I don't want to sit with them," said Pippi, "because I'm not acquainted with them. And besides, they bite," said Tommy. "Do they?" said Pippi. "Well, bite back then." Then Tommy found a little clearing among the hazel bushes, and he thought that would be a good place. "Oh, no, that's not sunny enough for my freckles," said Pippi, "and I do think freckles are so attractive." Further on they came to a hill that was easy to climb. On one side of the hill was a nice sunny rock, just like a little balcony, and there they sat down. "Now shut your eyes while I set the table," said Pippi. Tommy and Annika squeezed their eyes shut tightly as possible. They heard Pippi opening the basket and rattling paper. 1, 2, 19. Now you may look, said Pippi at last. They looked, and then they squealed with delight when they saw all the good things Pippi had spread on the bare rock. There were good sandwiches with meatballs and ham, a whole pile of sugared pancakes, several little brown sausages, and 3 pineapple puddings. For you see, Pippi had learned cooking from the cook on her father's ship. Aren't scrubbing vacations grand? Said Tommy with his mouth full of pancakes. We ought to have them every day. No, indeed, I'm not that anxious to scrub, said Pippi. It's fun to be sure, but not every day. That would be too tiresome. At last the children were so full they could hardly move, and they sat still in the sunshine and just enjoyed it. Wonder if it's hard to fly, said Pippi, and looked dreamily over the edge of the rock. The rock sloped down very steeply below them, and it was a long way to the ground. Down, at least one ought to be able to learn to fly, she continued. It must be harder to fly up, but you could begin with the easiest way. I do think I'll try. No, Pippi, cried both Tommy and Annika. Oh, dear, dear Pippi, no, don't do that. But Pippi was already standing at the edge. Fly, you foolish fly, fly, and the foolish fly flew, she said, and just as she said flew, she lifted her arms and took off into the air. In half a second, there was a thud. It was Pippi hitting the ground. Tommy and Annika lay on their stomachs and looked down at her, terrified. There's Tommy and Annika way up at the top, and there is Pippi, flat on her face. Pippi got up and brushed off her knees. I forgot to flap, she said joyfully. I guess I had too many pancakes in my stomach. At that moment, the children noticed that Mr. Nilsson had disappeared. He had evidently gone off on a little expedition of his own. They remembered that they had last seen him contentedly chewing the picnic basket to pieces, but during Pippi's flying experiment they had forgotten him. And now he was gone. Pippi was so angry that she threw her shoe into a big, deep pool of water. You should never take monkeys with you anywhere, she said. He should have been left at home to pick fleas off the horse. That would have served him right, she continued, wading out into the pool to get her shoe. The water reached up to her waist. I might as well take advantage of this and wash my hair, said Pippi, and ducked her hair under the water and kept it there so long that the water began to bubble. There now, I've saved a visit to the hairdresser, she said contentedly. When at last she came up for air, she stepped out of the pool and put on her shoe. Then she went to hunt for Mr. Nilsson.